13 years ago, the Nippersink Creek Dechannelization Project woke a stream up from a 50-year coma over the course of 3 very magical summers. And reanimating an unconscious river had not been done up to that time. And a decade and a half later, that stream has taught me a lot about stream ecology and more about riparian spirituality. So in 1939, you can see the river has a meandering course and it's clearly visible. But by 1954, the Nippersink was imprisoned in about a 10-foot high levee, and its wetlands had been tiled and its headwater streams had been ditched. By 1998, there was only a ghost channel that remained. Most of it was buried under spoil from 200-foot high cames that had been mined down, and they had been used to fill the channel anywhere from a depth of 5 feet to about a foot, and you can see the measurement there on the side. So for about half a century, the Nippersink reflected a totally utilitarian perspective about how we should use water. And the result was widespread flooding, severe bank erosion, and a disconnection of the stream from its surrounding wetlands. So on the eve of this project in 1998, the Nippersink was pretty much a terminally ill stream. So 13 years ago, it happened, and did the project work ecologically? So let me share with you some of the images of building the river and others of its life after the river when those 3 summers were done. And I can say it did work ecologically. The answer to that is a resounding yes. The severe flooding that used to occur downstream of Glacial Park disappeared after the project. And the reason is that today when it rains, the Nippersink does exactly what a stream is supposed to do. It goes from being 60 foot wide to half a mile wide, and it floods out into the surrounding wetlands. And that's exactly what streams are supposed to do. The water quality improved as well, as did the fish and the mussel and the bird species diversity. And today the IBI numbers for fish in the restored section of the stream are higher than at any time since we started sampling in the 1990s, when most of the Nippersink was still doing hard time in the ditch. The Nippersink's not remained where it was placed, however. We have ongoing studies to chart the movement of the channel, and it's made a number of unilateral decisions about channel width, depth, and position. In other words, it's kind of moved on its own accord. And having spent thousands of hours going over Army Corps of Engineers hydraulic models and moving 100,000 cubic yards of material back into 2 cames and generally midwifing the stream back into existence, I try to take this whole movement of the stream philosophically and not personally. The reason is, water by its very nature is a willful and a very independent child. The Nippersink's 13, and if any of you have raised children, you know what happens to them at 13. They disappear, and someday they come back, and the person that replaced them goes away. I can't only guess what's in store for me when the Nippersink is a few years older and wants the car keys. As a scientist, I really strongly believe that good science is critical to the restoration process. And here you see 3 scientists arguing about just how high 100 feet is. But measuring our success slowly in the language of science is environmental myopia, and it misses the most important message the river's trying to tell us. And that is that water's alive. And that's the deeper message that has to really govern our future relationship with water. It has to be honored and not treated as a refugee in its own banks. Something's different when you work on a project that has water involved in it, and I think the river over the years has kind of taught me why that is the case. Water moves, and it animates the landscape, and it provides it with a voice and with a character. Mountains are very impressive, but they're also very stoic. And old oaks can remember passenger pigeons, but they talk in a span of centuries and not human lives. And water talks to us in the original cellular language of life on Earth. And that we find it even in the blood in our bodies. And it smooths out the edges of our work, and it gets rid of the harshness and the petulance for corners that we seem to have in our society. And it melts everything, land and water, into kind of a cohesive whole. If you were Irish, which we both are, of course, my cousin and I, you would say that the water lies in the place between the twixt and the tween, and that it's ruled by the double-faced god Janus, and it shows us one face on the surface and one face underneath, and it's constantly asking us to look underneath it to see what is going on. And I think water does something else too as well. It kind of compels us to dream deeper dreams, to see further beyond what we've already done. And water carries those kind of dreams downstream to new faces and new eyes and new people. The dream of the Hackmatack National Wildlife Refuge, which you'll hear tomorrow, was born on the currents of the Nippersink. Because if you can restore the stream from a 50-year-old coma, then anything is possible. And then there's this. These are the river spirits. It doesn't matter what culture there is or what name they are, but every culture has believed that water is alive. And if I ever doubted the existence of that, the river goddess appeared a couple of years after Nippersink was done on a winter's day. And, spirit speaks in the voices that are available to it. And if you can't see the face in that one, look a little bit closer. So I'll close by just kind of saying this. Everybody in this room lives their work. But we also live very deeply enmeshed in a rare and a very singular moment of grace. There are events and projects and ideas that you've heard about today, and you'll hear more tomorrow, that can transform the way we think about the world and what's possible. And so what we thought were the boundaries of what we could accomplish are moved forward, and things change. And we live in a rare and singular moment of grace like that right now, and that's why it's so scary sometimes, because the world is really changing and new ideas are possible. These kids are about to bury a time capsule at the end of the project, and I think I'll kind of sum it up by saying, someone once asked me at a conference, they said, well, how do we fix all the damage that's happened to Illinois ecosystems over the years? It's too big, it's too huge, the watersheds are so extensive, how do we even start? And I think the river has the answer. You do that one watershed, one lifetime, one stream, and one river goddess at a time.